Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast, and today is a simple comment reacts video. Now, one of you, that being PresAlexWhit, gave us a poll idea, and I thought it was a really interesting one, so we thought we would put it out to you guys to see what we're all thinking on it. And that poll question is it cheating if when faced with a choice, you pause the game to think about your decision? Before we do get into the comments and where me and Liam stand, we just want to say thank you for everyone that commented and voted in this poll. There was 177 votes. So, mate, without further ado, I'll hand it over to you. Tell us the results.
Yeah, so we have 33% who said yes, it is cheating to pause the game, and 67% that said no, it is not. So, you know, about 2/3 of the votes, Jack, have said no, it's not cheating. I don't know like where the stance is. I will admit I sit in the majority, while I think you voiced, didn't you, mate, that you sit in the minority. So this could be a bit of a debate episode.
Yeah, I mean, should we start with our perspectives and then we'll get into the comments?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, it's case by case, and I was on the fence, as I always flipping am with these polls. The reason I said no is because, I've got friends that are dyslexic, and so basically it takes them a little longer to read. So if you voted yes, like you have, Jack, you're basically being discriminatory. Nah, but for real though, I don't know. I just feel like it is case by case. I do understand. There is one comment that I'll go into later, and it pretty much matches my opinion, so I'll say it as I read it with that. But I'll take a game like the FMV Late Shift, for example, and I specifically remember one of your critiques for that game is that the timer barely gives you any choice. I actually quite like having to think about the ramifications. I feel if I lose a character because I decided it, the wrong choice, but I had enough ample time to select it, I can take that more on the chin than if I felt rushed, because I don't know, sometimes the wording of the questions can be quite vague and ambiguous. So it's case by case, but I don't know. I think you're the player. It's your choice how you want to play the game. So I'm kind of a bit laissez-faire about it. So I voted no. How about yourself, and why did you vote yes, Jack?
Yeah, you know what? So as this goes on, the more I'm thinking that it is very contextual, because you are right in that instance, when you've got hardly any time to make a decision whatsoever, then perhaps pausing it isn't necessarily the worst thing. I think I align closely with what Zach Carter 2086 has said here, who's put, technically yes, if there's a timer, it's meant to be a split decision. They want you to feel the weight of a heavy choice that has to be made in seconds. To pause is to unimmerse yourself in the scenario. And I think this is where the context comes in, because I almost see it, to go with like the typical analogy, life is about choices. And sure, you get choices where you can sit back and think about it. But I think that it would be far more rewarding to, if you were to get a good outcome, to have been able to be put under pressure, make that choice, and then get the reward, than sit back and maybe scroll through the menu and look at the clues and the totems and put two and two together. For me, I feel like if you was doing a general, let's just talk about DPA, if you were just playing as, I don't know, Fliss, right, and you're walking about on the Man and Medan, there's not a lot happening. If you were to pause then and have a look at the clues and refresh things and stuff like that, I'm all for it. But if you've got a timer and then you pause in that choice to think things over, look at stuff, I feel like you are then robbing yourself of something from the game. Albeit I know it's good intentions because you're trying to keep characters alive, but you then lose something, in my opinion. So I do think that cheating, yeah, maybe so. I will stick with my guns on that.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, Zach. And I completely get the thing. It's like the game makers have set you the timer. They've got the creative vision. They want you to play it a certain way. So I get, it could potentially be seen as ruining the immersion if you was to pause and then take some time to think about it. So no, I fully get the school of thought. Everything here is fully valid. Next up, to back that point and reinforce Jack and Zach's arguments, we have PomPomPerin6699, who says the fun of the choice with the time is to make you think faster. When you pause, you lost some of the experience. In fact, most of the times I see someone pause the game to make a choice or even reload the checkpoint in older games, they end up with worse and more boring decisions. You see, more choice-based games, are not perfect, so they make the most interesting things happen when you mess up. In Detroit Become Human, even Chloe says in the menu of the game that you should take the consequences of the rest of the game so you don't lose your first experience. And you know what? It is a very good point. And one thing that I want to kind of bring up that, I usually do when I talk about Until Dawn, and I always mention this when, we talk about Until Dawn and replayability, but the YouTuber Markiplier not only paused on his choices, but when he killed a bunch of characters off, he actually reloaded the game. For me, like if you're extending, not just pausing to just restarting the game, I think that's like a massive sin, and I would sit firmly in the yes camp with you. The only time I think I've ever really done that is when I played Telltale: The Walking Dead and I wanted to revive my girlfriend Carly, but alas, that didn't work. But no, I fully get it. And you know what? If Chloe from the menu of Detroit Become Human saying it, maybe there's some grounds to what you're saying, Pom Pom.
Okay, so the next comment we've got here is from Jonathan Jimbo. Said, it depends on what the game is. If we talk about supermassive Quantic Dream games and the game has clearly given you a time choice, then pausing to think is definitely cheating. I agree with you there. Personally, I think they should disable pausing during time choices, at least when playing on anything besides the easiest difficulty setting, which I think is a very interesting take. And actually, at first glance, I was thinking I agree with you. The only thing where I do slightly go a little bit hesitant on that is purely from a selfish point of view, is perhaps when we're streaming, because one of the things we do on our channel is we do like to pause it and give you guys in the chat the opportunity to vote. Now, of course, if we was to do that, then you would be exclusively watching us make the choices for the whole game, and you've not got that level of interaction with your fan base. So in that case, I wouldn't necessarily want it.
Yeah, and it is a good sort of school of thought, and I do think if these game developers really wanted to make your experience fully immersive, I think that they should maybe kind of come up with a system like that where it actually stops you from being able to pause. So, but because they've allowed us to, I kind of think it's okay, and I can do what I want with my game. But as Jack said, it does give you guys the opportunity when we do stream the ability to join in on votes as well, and to kind of counter it. And this is kind of going back towards the no camp. I don't think it's cheating, but there are just some people out there who enjoy these video games because they're not as demanding mechanically as say some shooters or some puzzle games. So I do think these games are absolutely brilliant, and these games I often recommend to new gamers. And if a new gamer wanted to pause to kind of think the choices through, I think you should just be able to give them that license. But that is a very good point and very interesting take there, Jonathan. We have Dark Tiger here who says, in my eyes, yes, but only for a first playthrough. There is no pause button in real life, so it makes the games unrealistic. But later on, you do say that people want, more relaxed gaming, and they can play it however they like. So yeah, no, very true. Kind of like the points we've already mentioned. And you make a good point about how your first experience should be completely blind. When I played Until Dawn, I really didn't want to restart the game because I wanted my experience to be authentic. I wanted to have the true amount of survivors I did actually have. Like I've mentioned in a previous comment, I think restarting the game is definitely cheating. Pausing, it's a bit of a grey area, which is why I think this video is so interesting and why we haven't got a unanimous vote here. But I fully agree with you, and it's such a valid comment you've made there, Tiger.
Yeah, and it's something that holds true with me as well. I think almost back to when I first encountered a supermassive game, which was obviously Until Dawn when we was at uni, lad. And I think back to that choice where you're with Chris and you could choose to shoot Ashley or yourself. And I just think to myself now, if I hit pause in that and thought about it, I might have got the right outcome, because I might have thought to myself, is it likely that they're going to get one character to shoot another character at this point when, there's nothing else you could have done to have prevented that scenario? You're rationalising it, you'd get the right outcome, but you're then losing something, the jeopardy's completely gone. And I do think that is sort of like such a key ingredient in these games, and they are built to be replayed. So I think being authentic and then going back and perhaps being a bit more careful about your decisions is the best way forward. So we're going to move over to the no's now, guys, and picking out Tatjana's comment. They say, no, I even think it makes decisions more powerful if you make them after giving it some thought instead of in the heat of the moment. Sure, it can be very fun to watch someone pick the wrong decisions because the timer makes them panic, but I prefer the weight of a decision that was made carefully and deliberately. And that, it does have some merit. I do agree with you, because then having thought about it, you still get it wrong. It's that sense of, wow, like I even had time to make the call and I still managed to get someone killed off or whatever. So yeah, I feel like that is a very strong argument. Coming back to the timer thing as well, you really do need the timer to be in that perfect like green zone where it gives you long enough to perhaps consider things that you've seen in the game, but short enough so that it's not, you're not sort of thinking too long. There is that sort of impulse, that spontaneity with your decision making. So yeah, it's a very fair point.
Next up for saying no, we have Tiny's Teddies, who says cheating at a single player game, laugh my ass off. So I guess you're trying to say that, yeah, like it's a single player game, do what you like, it's not really affecting anyone. So yeah, no, thank you for sending that comment in. If you want to check out Tiny Tiffany's OnlyFans, her beacons bring all the boys to the yard, and that is the link. Enjoy.
So we've got one from here from Stacey's mum, who says it's not cheating, but it will make the game less fun. Yeah, I completely agree with that, although I do think it is cheating somewhat. Danish multi-channel says no, because 9 times out of 10 I still pick the wrong answer. That's interesting, because you know what? It's just reminded me, having played Life is Strange Double Exposure recently, which doesn't have a timer on its choices. You do get to sit there and stew, don't you? I don't prefer it. I do like the timer element of a choice. Obviously, it's going to increase your likelihood of picking, the wrong decision. But I think that's part and parcel of the experience and the enjoyment.
We have Kingdom Hearts 863, who says, I only think it's cheating if you look up the outcomes. I mean, that one I fully agree with. If you're looking up the outcomes, you're completely taking the sting out of what makes these games special. I would rather play, say, a DPA game where all the characters died and the decisions were mine than play it where all the characters survived, but I've looked up how to save them. To me, that's not fun. So Kingdom Hearts, I'm in complete agreement with you.
And finally, we're going to finish on the comment from the person who instigated this poll, from PresAlexWhit, who said, I wouldn't consider pausing the game to be cheating per se, but it is being used in a manner that is a bit cheap yet understandable. In my opinion, thinking the situation through and making a choice with confidence, even if I chose wrong, is more enjoyable than making a choice too quickly and instantly regretting it, especially when playing a game with someone else in co-op/spectating. There are often accessibility options to prevent running out of time in certain choices, but in my mind, that actually feels more like cheating than simply pausing the game. Very interesting point about the couch co-op there, mate.
Yeah, no, very much so. I mean, he comes up with the example how he played Frank Stone with his girlfriend and they paused and kind of spoke together on the choices, got everyone killed, but, they happily took that consequence together and he found that enjoyable. And I completely get that, because if I was playing co-op with someone, and I have played co-op with someone in these games before, and sometimes it might be that they've quickly made a decision, but you were sat next to them, and you probably would have done it differently, and you would have liked to have kind of pep talk them, or kind of come to a co-op consensus, if you will, on that choice. So I do get it, but then again, maybe you could argue if you're playing a game like DPA, where if the controller's in your hands, it's your license, it's your decision to make. So I completely get both sides, but yeah, though, that is a very good point there, Alex.
There is one final point I'll actually finish on, which goes against my vote. I'd say this more backs the no camp than the yes camp. But a little bit of it, and especially in the casting of Frank Stone, we are at the mercy of the developers with the choices, because you can only do a certain amount of crystal ball gazing as to what the next cut scene's going to be. I'm thinking about Frank Stone with Linda and the elevator thing. If you go to save Maddie, for some reason that helps keep Linda alive, whereas if Linda goes to run away to get away in the elevator, Frank Stone then comes in and decapitates her. So, you know, maybe if you were to pause at that particular moment and consider it, it could have worked for you, it could have worked against you. So actually, sometimes it can not matter. It's really about the branching and what the devs have put in place for us to, you know, ultimately experience when we've made the choice. So guys, there we go. That was obviously our reaction to your comments on that poll about cheating, whether pausing. I'm getting my words muddled up. Is it cheating if you pause in a choice-based game? Again, thank you to everyone that voted and commented, and it was good to go through this. And actually, it's something that I feel like has been on my mind in the past, but I've never thought to bring it forward as a discussion topic. But it was actually really good, and I was pleasantly surprised to see how many people voted no in this one. So, lad, have you got anything else to add before we wrap up?
Not at all, just thank you to Alex for submitting this video idea.
Absolutely, same from me, and hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and we will see you in the next one.
Ciao for now, guys.